Hello, my name is Dan Skip Allen, and this is the Top 5 Weekly, where myself and my guests discuss a topic. It could be an actor, it could be an actress, it could be a director, or it could just be a regular topic where, there's a movie coming out that week that resembles that topic. This week, we are talking about Mr. All right, Mr. Matthew McConaughey. And I don't do this alone. So here are my guests this afternoon. Mr. Brian Michaels, how you doing this afternoon?
Well, I've been better. I'm going to apologize in advance for two things. Number one, I'm fighting something, so you're going to hear me sniffling and sneezing and mouth breathing, and I'll try and mute when I can. Second thing is, found out about an hour ago I was going to be on the show, so I, tried to get prepared as much as I could, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you know what, Brian? One of the reasons why someone recommended you, and I said, I knew you from I've known you a while, and I know you have good taste in movies. Every once in a while, you'll have a hot take out there, but pretty much your knowledge is really good. So I knew if you could come up with 5 Matthew, you'd come up with a decent list. So
my knowledge, yes. My taste, some people would argue with you on that, but
yeah, that's what. And a good buddy of mine, I've been trying to get him on for a while. It's just our schedules haven't worked out. Mr. Russell Howell, how you doing?
Been good, man. I'm really looking forward to this. Been trying to get on the show here, just hasn't coincided with my work schedule. I'm off today though, so it's good. And I'm looking forward to talking about Mr. Matthew McConaughey. Should be exciting.
All right. Let's get this thing going. Brian, what's your number 5?
My number 5. Well, you know what? When I was looking over his list, I saw, Matthew McConaughey really is a guy who kind of does a little bit of everything. So I wanted to put my list so kind of representing all the different kind of genres he likes to get into. And one of them he does not as much anymore, but he really did do for a long time was romantic comedies. One of the ones I really enjoyed was Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. It's actually turned out to be a surprisingly enjoyable movie. I was ready to pass it off as just another, passable romantic comedy.
Hold on a second, Brian. Russell, do you have Ghosts of Girlfriends
No.
Past?
No. I was writing down an honorable mention. It got me thinking because I wanted to honor the chick flick renaissance of Matthew McConaughey.
Neither do I. So go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry. I should have paused and waited.
With Russell, just to make sure he didn't have that. So
that's fine. No, but I was ready to write it off as just another one of his romantic comedies. But I heard some good reviews about it. I went and saw it, and I really enjoyed it. It's different than most romantic comedies. It's kind of told from a guy's point of view. It's obviously, you can tell from the title, done kind of like Christmas Carol kind of set up with Michael Douglas plays his uncle, his womanizing uncle, and he's trying to teach him to change his ways. But the movie it's actually quite funny. It's actually got quite a bit of heart to it. The supporting cast is great. It's got Michael Douglas as kind of the Marley character. It's got Lacey Chabert as kind of the high-strung bride-to-be of his brother. And those kind of the standouts, as well as like Emma Stone plays one of the ghosts, Breckin Meyer, some other people. But as far as he's representing kind of that part of his career, this is one of my favorites as far as like his romantic comedies.
All right, you got any thoughts on this, Russell?
No, I agree. I mean, there was a time where he was doing these movies every year. And I think that's what kind of, if you look at like the early 2000s, with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and stuff like that, that whole entire run with like Fool's Gold, that's all he did. But yeah, I did see the movie. It's an enjoyable film. It is something different. I'll give Brian credit on that one. It is different, and it does play, like how he said, with kind of like a Christmas Carol-esque theme, only this, instead of this one, is just basically to have him kind of change his ways, just like Scrooge in the other film. But it's a good film. It's not bad. It's far from a bad movie.
Yeah, Brian, I'll tell you, I'm going to be straight up with you here. I am not a fan of the Matthew McConaughey era where he was in the romantic comedies. I'm not that romantic of a person. These movies just weren't my cup of tea, so I never saw this movie. So.
Right. And if you're actually asking me like what I think are his actual like top 5 performances, obviously this is not going to be up there, but just as far as I wanted to kind of represent all sides of his career. So
no, I completely understand. All right, Russell, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a cameo that he does. He's in the movie briefly, Wolf of Wall Street, number 5. Just because
Ryan, you got that?
Nope.
I don't have it. It's in my honorable mention, Russell. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I watched it yesterday.
Just for the sheer fact of seeing like pretty much like a Matthew McConaughey cameo out of the blue in Scorsese's Wolf of Wall Street. I just think it was funny how he's basically, basically teaching Leonardo DiCaprio's character to seize the day. Like, don't let anybody stand in your way. Like, be the bull, be the man. And I really like that bravo that he like pretty much, shoots to him. And I just love that where he's pounding on his chest and doing that, man. I think it's a great cameo. It's like how we were talking about beforehand, Brian was like about, are these just straight up Matthew McConaughey films, or can they be with like cameos? And I, just because of the fact of the brevity of like how short his role is in it, that's why I put it down at number 5. But nonetheless, I still think it's a great cameo. So yeah, I got Wolf of Wall Street number 5.
I'll tell you what, I love the Wolf of Wall Street, and one of the best parts about the film is this 8-minute, I think it's like 8 minutes or something like that, where maybe it's more than 8 minutes, but they're out to lunch and he's like ordering and he's showing them how to be a rich guy, and how this industry, the stockbroker industry and all this works, and this whole thing. And just a little story off the side. It was like a thing that Matthew McConaughey did off to the side to kind of calm himself, to relax his mind. And Martin Scorsese saw that and he says, "Hey man, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that in the movie when you do your character?" And he's like, "Okay." And so that's where the origin of that in the movie comes from, is he's just off to the side, just relaxing, taking it easy. And he's doing that to kind of rest himself and kind of calm himself down, and it ends up in the movie, and it ends up this funny scene that you don't forget now. Brian, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, leave it to Dan to know all the behind the scenes stories on a Scorsese film, so I'm not surprised at all. No, I really enjoyed Wolf of Wall Street, and Matthew McConaughey's role particularly. I didn't include it, like you said, just because it was a cameo, which I really enjoyed, but I wanted the room on my list for other things. But Matthew, McConaughey's one of those guys who just oozes charisma. I mean, that word is used a lot, but really it's a whole different thing with him. Like, anytime he's on screen, even for just a short cameo like that, he just commands your attention, whether it be in a comedy or action or drama or whatever. And it was probably one of the highlights of the movie was his role in that. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. I'm gonna do a little bit of shooting. And if I don't know if you guys know what shooting means. It's a wrestling term where instead of talking about the storyline of what's going on, you actually talk about real life stuff that actually happens. We lost Brian there. Russell there for a second. I'm sure he'll come back. So I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of shooting because Brian wasn't here when we were talking about this. But somebody, namely the guy that just left, who's going to come back here in a second, was saying it. I don't care what's on anybody's list as long as one particular thing is on somebody's list. And I say, "Oh no, I got that at number 5, and I absolutely love it." And it's The Beach Bum, and it came out last year. And I'll tell you right now, the whole, he's kind of got this whole thing, Matthew McConaughey, where all right, from Dazed to Confused, where everybody this kind of like relaxed kind of atmosphere. This guy that's kind of like, hey, he's just the cool guy. Well, he takes it to the next level with The Beach Bum. And I thought The Beach Bum was so funny, and he took that cool, beachy, relaxed, weed smoking type character guy, and he went with it. And I'll be honest, I absolutely loved Moondog in The Beach Bum, and it's got some great cameos from Snoop Dogg and Martin Lawrence and Zac Efron, and I just think it was funny and it was neat, and it wasn't what. So I just love that he did that, and he took his own persona and he went with it, and that's why he ended up doing The Beach Bum, and I just enjoyed it. Russell, you said you didn't want it on anybody's list. I was just doing a little bit of shooting. Told him that you said that. Tell me what is it about The Beach Bum you don't like? I kind of want to get into this for a second.
But to me, honestly, when you think of, especially the year that Serenity came out.
No, that's garbage. That's garbage. No doubt about it.
But I'm just saying, I feel like the McConaughey renaissance has kind of dwindled here in the last couple of years, just because of the roles that he's selected haven't been that great. If you look at I would say maybe early 2010s. I think he was really starting to come up in a resurgence.
Yeah.
And then I just feel like some of the back end of the decade here, I think it just kind of fell off the map here.
Okay.
I appreciate the fact that he went out and did kind of how you said, did the stoner role that he was known for and kind of took it and ran with it. I did appreciate that. To me as a film, though, I just think it would, I mean, the guy that did Spring Breakers did this film, I believe. And it was just one of those things. Was it the guy that did Spring Breakers, right?
The woman that did Spring Breakers.
Yeah. Did she direct Spring Breakers?
Yes.
She directed Beach Bum, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's the same type of feel to it. I mean, you can watch the films, you could tell they pretty much they had to be the same director.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just one of those films. It was kind of a forgettable film. I did appreciate McConaughey in it, and I thought it was a different film. But to me, it just didn't work. I probably need to go back and revisit it. But like a first viewing of it, walking out, I was just kind of.
All right, Brian, you got any thoughts on The Beach Bum?
Well, it is directed by a guy. His name's Harmony Korine.
Okay.
His sister is in the movie, so maybe that's what threw you off in there.
Oh, okay.
But I have not seen Beach Bum. It does look like a role that was tailor made for Matthew McConaughey to kind of basically spoof himself in there. But being someone who hated Spring Breakers, I didn't even bother going to see this movie. So
I did hate Spring Breakers. I'll be honest, I did hate Spring. So I went into this thinking, oh, this isn't going to be good. And when I walked out, I was pleasantly surprised, and I just said, man, Matthew McConaughey.
I'll check it out someday.
Yeah, he went there with it. All right, so let's get into Brian's number 4.
Okay. Number 4, again, these lower ones on my list are just kind of making sure to cover all his parts of his career. Matthew, surprisingly, he did not lean heavily into action movies much. With somebody with his physicality and his good looks and everything, you would have thought that he'd go into more action, but he chose to take a different route in his career, and obviously it's worked out great for him. One of the few action movies he did do, which I enjoyed, an action sci-fi movie called Reign of Fire. Now, this is just totally, I mean, I'm not looking at it as an acting performance, although his character is really fun in this movie. But he got bulked up and he shaved his head, and he's kind of this hard, cigar chewing kind of guy driving a tank around. But it's a movie that, again, kind of showed another side to him, I thought. And then as far as the movie itself, I thought it was fun. I mean, you hadn't really seen like a whole lot of dragon movies up to that point. It's got, Christian Bale and Gerard Butler, and it's kind of this apocalyptic future. In one scene, they're doing story time for the kids and telling this half-remembered version of Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, which is kind of fun. But it's just as far as his action career goes, which was this, maybe Sahara, kind of U-571, which is a little more drama though. He didn't do much action, but I thought that if he chose to go that route, I thought this showed he could have done very well in it.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I think this is a great pick. Russell, do you have this on your list?
I don't have it on my list, and believe it or not, I just never got around to watching it. Just because of the bad review. I have the movie. It was one of those ones where it's like I bought it at like a discount store or whatever, just to have it. One of those ones where I'll visit on a on a rainy day or whatever. But just because of the reviews, everybody just kind of bashed it, and I'm like, kind of shied me away from it. And I remember it being released in the theaters. Was this in early 2000?
Yeah, I want to say it's 2002, 2003.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was early 2000 release. Just was one of the ones I never got around to, but it's something I definitely wanted to check out just because of come on, it's Bale, Butler, and McConaughey. I think that'd be kind of fun. Yeah, but it's one of those ones I stayed away from just because of the bad word of mouth I got.
No, I actually, Brian, I'll tell you, low key, I have heard people say that they really like Reign of Fire for various reasons, specifically for Christian Bale. But you're right, Matthew McConaughey is fantastic in it. And it's one of those movies you just don't think of that often. And this guy has had a 30-year career in the movies. I mean, you don't think Matthew McConaughey's been acting for 30 years? Yeah, he's been around since the early 90s. I mean, literally like 1990, around that period, he's been acting. And he's done everything under the sun, all kinds of genres. And he rarely did something like this in his career. I mean, you can go back, there's nothing like this that he's ever done in his career. So it was a great choice by you, and a good movie. It's an underrated, really good movie that people just don't talk about a lot. All right, Russell, what is your number 4?
My number 4, I went sports films, obviously football, so I went with We Are Marshall. I really thought this really tested a serious side of McConaughey, and I love the story. Obviously, the tragic story that happened to the Marshall football team. I really was just when I was engrossed with this film. I just really enjoyed watching this film.
Brian, you don't have We Are Marshall?
Not on my list, no.
Neither do I. So go ahead, Russell.
It was just one of those films where I thought it was a different side of Matthew McConaughey, kind of how like Brian was saying, like, he has pretty much dabbled in pretty much every type of genre, but this one to me was one of the ones that stood out like a dramatic performance side. I just really enjoyed it. Like I said, it told the story about the Marshall football team that tragically got killed in a plane crash. It was just one of those films where it is like the Remember the Titans-esque type film. You just heart and soul is with the team, and it tells that story. And I really enjoy this film. It's something that I always come back to, and it's just a really good, solid performance from McConaughey.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I saw We Are Marshall in the theater, and I really, really enjoyed it. Ian McShane is in it. Yep, that Ian McShane from Deadwood and so many, and the John Wick franchise. He's in it, and it's a true story. You're like, oh, I didn't even know. I love these sports movies that tell a story that you don't know anything about, you never heard of. But this is actually a true story that actually happened. The whole team died in a plane crash, and to rebuild after that is like one of the craziest things. How do you build a football program back up after the whole team, like 3/4 of the team died or whatever? Doctors died, fans died, all kinds of people died.
Well, that on top of it, you're rebuilding a community on top of it. Not even just a football team, but you're rebuilding a community. And I think that's where this film really plays on the heartstrings, just because of the fact it's not all about football; it's about people.
Yeah,
and that's why it prides itself on that. And I just really enjoyed the film.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Brian, you got any thoughts on We Are Marshall?
We Are Marshall kind of just missed my list. That's another one that I didn't end up putting that one on, but it was definitely on my short list, and I was trying to come up with what to talk about. So I'm glad somebody else brought it up. But sports films I always find very enjoyable, but they a lot of them can seem very similar, but I thought that this one not only kind of had an original story to tell, but the fact that it was based on a true story. And like you said, it isn't just about the team. I mean, most sports teams kind of try and have, it's not just about the game, but this one, like you said, was about the whole community had to rebuild and come to terms with everything. And I thought that was very well done. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree. All right, guys, we're getting in my number 4. This is a movie I recently rewatched, and because I was doing another topic a week or two ago, and I wanted to kind of watch a bunch of movies in that topic, and it just so happened that I was going to be doing Matthew McConaughey soon afterwards, so it worked out for me. And it's a movie based on a book that I absolutely love. I love the author, and let me know if y'all have this, so I won't get into talking about too much more of it. A Time to Kill. Does anybody have that on?
I've got it.
Okay,
honorable mention on mine.
Okay, let's hold off on that.
Further down on your list, so I won't talk about it until you get to it on your list, unless it's number 3, Brian.
No.
Okay, all right. Just double check it with you, because if it's number 3, we can talk about it right now. But all right, we'll skip that right now because I want to let Brian get to it on his list. So Brian, we're going back to you with number 3.
Number 3 is one that actually is kind of similar to Time to Kill in many aspects. And that is Steven Spielberg's Amistad. It's got Matthew McConaughey playing. Oh, does anybody else have that first?
No. I don't have that. Another one that's on my honorable mentions. Russell.
Okay. It's another one. It's got Matthew McConaughey playing kind of the young lawyer, kind of stepping in, trying to save this guy. But I think it's one of Steven Spielberg's more underrated movies. It's not his best at all, but I think it's so well done. I think most of that is because of the relationship between Matthew McConaughey's lawyer and Jaimin Hunsu. I believe his name was like Sinke or something like that. Yeah. But that was the first place we ever saw Jaimin Hunsu, at least that I recognized, and really he was in a major role. But he really blew everybody away, and the relationship between the two of them was just I thought it worked so well. And of course, you have a supporting cast, which is everybody from Anthony Hopkins to Chiwetel Ejiofor to I can't remember who else is in this movie, but it's just
Skarsgård.
Yeah, and Morgan Freeman. It's got a great cast top to bottom. It's Steven Spielberg doing what Steven Spielberg does, and while it's not the best movie for any of these people, I thought it was just very strong and very well done.
Absolutely, Russell, you got any thoughts on Amistad?
No, kind of how what Brian said. I mean, it's one of those classics that you go to. It's a really underrated Spielberg film, and it's a lot different. It was a lot different material that Spielberg put out in that time, because I remember it coming out and it being like, oh wait, Amistad was directed by Spielberg, because you're expecting like high octane this was right after Saving Private Ryan, wasn't it?
That's before Saving Private Ryan. Actually, he filmed this.
Was it before Saving Private Ryan?
He was filming this while he was editing Lost World. So because
I know that makes sense. And yeah, it was like a year before Private Ryan.
I believe it was the year before. Yeah, 97 versus 98. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it was one of those things where he's just transitioning it as a director, just kind of doing all sorts of different things. But yeah, this was definitely a project when he undertook it. A lot of people were like, "Wow, he's gonna direct this." Like they're expecting like this big blockbuster director, and he took on this this film about and I thought it was good. It was a good film. It was definitely an underrated Spielberg film for sure.
Brian, I actually watched this this weekend preparing for this show, thinking somebody would probably talk about the character his name is Roger Sherman Baldwin, the lawyer. And this is actually a story about Africans, and they were captured on the high seas, and they escaped, and they ended up in America, but then they were trying to find out whose property they were, and it ended up being a big event in the Civil War, at the beginning of the Civil War. And like you said, the cast is ridiculous. Anthony Hopkins is John Quincy Adams, one of the multiple presidents he has played. Trivia question, folks out there. Keep that in mind. That's a good trivia question. But no, this is the movie. We had talked about a movie with a bunch of MCU actors. This is the one I was talking about. I'm like, look at all these guys that are in it from the MCU, and they're like, I didn't realize they were all in Amistad. And Jaimin Hansu, wow, is he amazing? What a coming out performance for him. Definitely watch it. If you want to see Jaimin Hansu, he is fantastic. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. I think he got an Oscar nomination.
He was nominated, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, so and this is something that Matthew McConaughey had a penchant for playing lawyers. We'll get to a couple more of them before the show's over. So let's get to Russell. Russell, what is your number 3?
You know what? That'll segue to my number 3, because I was teetering where to put it. I'm going to go with one where he was really just carrying the film as a lawyer. I'm going to go with The Lincoln Lawyer at number 3.
And I have it exactly at the same spot, Russell, number 3.
It was just a good film. Like I said, this is really, I think Lincoln Lawyer was really the resurgence of the Matthew McConaughey, the McConaissance. I think the second McConaissance. I think this was 2011, 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you're right.
Yeah, 2011. Just a really good film. I mean, this was really like Rico Suave, lawyer that he, again, it was a different type. It wasn't obviously like Amistad. It wasn't like A Time to Kill, but this guy, it was a more confident as an actor. And I think this was one of his, just him taking the lead on this, on the film. You know what I mean? Like him actually showcasing what type of actor he is. I just was a really good film. And again, kind of divvy away from the whole chick flick thing, where he was, all of the early 2000s, that's pretty much all he did. So it was nice to see him at the beginning of this decade kind of dabble in a little bit more serious. And as we will talk about, with our other picks, I'm sure this decade here really kind of tested him as an actor, because he took a lot more serious roles that he wouldn't have done in the early 2000s, just because of the fact that it just wasn't selling. Nobody wanted to see Matthew McConaughey in a serious role. They wanted to see him with Kate Hudson or whatever to do movies with, multiple times. But anyway, Lincoln Lawyer was the one I put at number 3. I just really enjoyed this film. And again, it was just one of those ones where he just really carried this film the whole entire time. It's been a while since I've revisited it, so I apologize if I don't know the nuts and bolts from the film, but I just remember walking out of that film when I saw it in the theater. I was like, damn, this is a really good McConaughey film, and he really did carry the film pretty well from top to bottom, so I had to put that at number 3.
Yeah, the name of the character is Mickey Haller, and believe it or not, this is based on a series of books from Michael Connelly, and in the same universe as the Lincoln Lawyer is Harry Bosch. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Harry Bosch. He's a detective in the LAPD, and he's got a show on Amazon. Those two characters are in the same universe that Michael Connelly has created, And I have been dying to see somehow if Amazon could get the rights from Lionsgate to get the Lincoln Lawyer into Harry Bosch, but it's not happening because Lionsgate owns Harry Bosch, the Lincoln Lawyer, and Amazon owns Harry Bosch. So we're just kind of in a position where I don't think we're going to get them to cross over. But absolutely, what you said, Russell, I was blown away by this character of the Lincoln Lawyer. I read like 3 of the books, the Lincoln Lawyer books. I absolutely love him. He's so just he's just so just suave and just like this whole world, how he plays with this law world, this courts and stuff, and he gets involved with this crazy this killer guy played by what's his
Ryan Phillippe.
And it's got like Marissa Tomei, and got Fargo. What's his name from Fargo?
William H. Macy.
Bryan Cranston's in it.
Cranston. Yeah. Trace Adkins is in it. He plays a biker. He's in a biker gang. Trace Adkins, the country music singer. It just is a really entertaining movie, and I'm like, please give me sequels. Please give me sequels. And there hasn't been any sequels to the Lincoln Lawyer. I've been so upset because I wanted more of these so bad because there's more books. I want the books to be turned into a movie. But you're right. This was the beginning of the McConaissance. Russell, you hit the nail on it. He was like in 5 great movies that year. Whatever year it was that this came out, I don't know if it was 2014 or 2011 or whatever.
It was 11.
I think it was 11, yeah.
He was in like 5 great movies that year. Like it seemed like everything he was in was something different and something groundbreaking for him in his career. And Lincoln Lawyer was definitely one of them. Brian, you got any thoughts on the Lincoln Lawyer?
No, I really enjoyed the Lincoln Lawyer. The only reason it was on my list because I had enough lawyer stuff already on there. I didn't want to make it entirely lawyer centric, but this is a great pick. Not to be confused with Lincoln car commercials.
Yeah. Who would have thought it
afterwards?
You got to wonder if they approached him when it's after this movie because of that. But
it all goes full circle.
Right. But I mean, I have been in love with Marissa Tomei since birth, pretty much. Since she only gets more beautiful and talented with age. The whole supporting cast, like you said, is great. They actually, I was looking up because I thought I'd heard something. The Lincoln Lawyer franchise has been optioned for a TV series that's supposedly going to come out on like CBS. Obviously not with Matthew McConaughey, but they are going to make a series of it. It looks like. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the movie. Really enjoyed the cast. It was kind of something that came out of nowhere. It's one of those movies. Just I had no idea they were making it. And I watched it and I really enjoyed it.
All right, fantastic. All right, so we're going to number 2 for Brian.
Number 2 for me. I'd be surprised if somebody doesn't have it higher. Is Dazed and Confused? Anybody?
I actually do not have
it. Oh,
I don't have it.
Okay,
I thought about it. It's in my honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
It's one of those movies that, I mean, he's not the lead character, but that movie, I'm not even sure if it really has a lead character. It's just like a whole lot of supporting characters. It's just a kind of a day in the life and a slice of life on that day in the 70s, last day of school kind of thing. This is obviously the movie that kind of caught everybody's attention for Matthew McConaughey. He had done a couple films before this, like small parts in nothing movies and things. But people watched this, and this is the first one where he really showed, like I was talking about earlier, that charisma, where he's on screen. And if you came out of that movie remembering any character, you remembered him. I mean, even at the top of the show, we're doing the all right. And that's just become his kind of iconic thing because it really fit that's his natural personality. It's just very it's kind of laid back, like a cool man kind of thing. And it's just, he has so many quotable lines in this movie, and I just really thought that it was important for me to put this on this list. So one of us talks about it just because it really was kind of he burst onto the scene with this movie. Yeah,
I mean, you want to go say something, Russell?
No, like kind of just how it Brian's. It was one of the the ones that really put him on the map. I mean, this was how many times have you heard all right? You know what I mean? It's just it's an iconic performance.
Yeah. And I will say this, there's a line of dialogue in this movie, which I will not say. Back in the day, it kind of was sloughed off as like, okay, whatever. But today, this guy would be arrested for saying what he's saying. literally, if someone heard him say that line of dialogue, he would be right. But back in the movie, you're like, okay, whatever. He's just this crazy, weird character, you know? And that's the kind of thing that what made his character and him and his persona like a cool persona. You know, he got that persona, you know, and that's what that. And I'm not going to say the line of dialogue because I just don't want to say it. It's kind of a creepy line of dialogue. You got any thoughts on that, Brian, real quick?
Oh, on that line you're talking about? I understand. It's one of those things you watch and it just crosses your mind that this wouldn't go over today, but at the same time, it's like it's just a movie. So
yeah, you're right. All right, so I'm going to Russell for number 2.
Number 2, I think I've kind of did what Brian did in a way, because like I said, I had Wolf of Wall Street, which was more of a serious, dramatic cameo. We Are Marshall was drama. Lincoln Lawyer was, well, I guess drama. Oh, boy, I'm trying to dabble a little different aspects of Matthew McConaughey. So I went with a sci-fi film, big budget, Interstellar, as my number 2 Matthew McConaughey performance. I thought it was something different, something not, out of the box, out of the ordinary for Matthew McConaughey, especially on a grand level like this, being in a Christopher Nolan film, being surrounded by such great casts. Like from top to bottom, it's surrounded by a great cast. I mean, the movie in itself is not the greatest Christopher Nolan film, but that's still not to take away from the good performances in the film, and including Matthew McConaughey leading it. So yeah, I have that as my number 2. It was one of those ones where I really, again, this was during the decade of the McConaughey reconnaissance. You know what I mean? I just thought that anything that he did and anything he was in was just lights out. So
yeah, I'll be honest with you. I liked Interstellar. I didn't love it. He was the reason to see it because it was like McConaughey working with Christopher Nolan. You're like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, can't wait to see Jessica Chastain in there. Michael Caine. You're like, okay. Then the ending was just a little bit ambiguous. You don't know what. So it was kind of. I actually thought about Interstellar for months and months afterwards.
Yeah.
About the ending of that movie. A lot of times that's what Nolan does to you. But yeah, I did like McConaughey in Interstellar. Like you said, it's not one of Nolan's best. Do you have any thoughts on Interstellar, Brian?
I'm not a big fan of Interstellar, but this is kind of one of those ones where I had to decide, am I ranking films if I'm ranking his performance? Because Matthew McConaughey does a great job in this movie.
Yeah.
So he is not one of the problems with the film that I have. I don't hate the film. It's just not something I'm going to revisit very often. But if I'm judging just by Matthew McConaughey, I thought he did a spectacular job.
And that's where I ranked it performance-wise. I wasn't a giant fan of Interstellar. I can name you 4 or 5 other Nolan films that are better than Interstellar, but I go back to performance-wise.
Right.
And just the fact that he's carrying this big, huge blockbuster, which I don't think he really had done in his career, not to this level, not to this grand scale, especially with big directors and a huge cast around them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely agree. All right, so we're going to go to my number 2. And like I said, if someone's got this, just speak up right away. This is the movie that really kicked off. I mean, Lincoln Lawyer was the movie that kicked off the McConaughey's. But when people saw this film, they were like, oh, boy, this guy's starting to turn the tide here. And it's called
Texas Chainsaw Next Generation. Oh.
Mud.
It was close.
Does anybody have Mud left on their list?
No.
Nobody has Mud. All right, so Mud is basically a film about an escaped prisoner who lives in the woods, and these 2 boys end up befriending him because he kind of stole their boat. They found a boat in the woods and they were going to refurb it, and he kind of basically, when he escapes from the prison, he kind of hangs out in the boat, and these 2 kids kind of befriend him, and he's come back to this town to find his girlfriend, played by Reese Witherspoon. It's got Michael Shannon in it. It has Sam Shepard in it. It's directed by Jeff Nichols. And I don't know if you know Jeff Nichols, but this guy has really made some fantastic films. And the first one, I think, Take Shelter and Mud were around the same time. Either one was before the other or one after the other. I can't remember those. And he's just is like this ambiguous character where you don't really know a lot about him. but he really is kind of like this cool guy, and he befriends these kids, and he starts teaching these kids about life and all this kind of stuff. And this is the film to me that I was like, okay, we're going here with Matthew McConaughey. This and like Killer Joe and some of these films that he was in. And that year was like a breakout year for McConaughey. So that's why I wanted to put this on the list, because I just absolutely love the film, and great performances, and has a great message in the film as well about, be careful who you trust. Brian, you got any thoughts on Mud?
Yeah, Mud was actually a pretty good movie. It's Matthew McConaughey, again, he kind of has that, like you said, he kind of oozes that cool to him, but at the same time, he's a very mysterious character. This is kind of the first place where most of us saw Ty Sheridan, who'd go on to do like Ready Player One and some X-Men movies and things like that. I thought he and the other kid, whose name I don't remember offhand, he was also with Matthew in Free State of Jones. But I thought both the kids did an excellent job. So yeah, it didn't make my list, but I can totally respect this as a pick because it was very good.
Russell, you got any thoughts on Mud?
Yeah, just echo you. I mean, it was a solid film. Again, this was the beginning of the McConaughey, so yeah. I mean, it was good. Like anything, he could have done anything that year. I think he was just in his zone in that time frame.
Now you hit the nail on the head. That was my number 2. All right, so Brian, we're gonna go to your number 1. I'm assuming it's my number 4.
Yep.
So,
A Time to Kill. A Time to Kill, I thought, is personally speaking, is one of my favorite courtroom dramas, and I thought it was just so well done, which is surprising because it's from Joel Schumacher, who has made a lot of bad movies, but actually when he's not doing like Batman superhero type movies, he actually makes some pretty good movies. And I thought he did a great job with this one. Matthew McConaughey, this is kind of his first starring role in a big movie. He'd done big roles in small movies, and he'd done small roles in big movies before this, but this is kind of the first one where he was carrying a big movie. And I thought he did such a spectacular job, especially that end speech where he kind of basically wins the case. I thought that was just such a gut-wrenching, dramatic moment to that. Again, the whole cast top to bottom with Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Cooper. There's all kinds of people in this movie who I really love. But it was just, this is the one that I think cemented him as a star. I mean, not only just somebody, to watch, but already at that point, you're like, wow, this is a star-making performance. And he really made a mark there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Brian. I mean, Jake Brigance is a character that is so well, it just comes off the page from the book. And then in how Matthew McConaughey he's just so confident. He's just kind of living in this southern world, and he just knows he's the SHIT. He just knows it, and he ends up in this really kind of difficult situation of defending this guy who seeks revenge on something that happened to his little girl. And Kevin Spacey is the other lawyer in the film, and he's fantastic. It has Sandra Bullock, Oliver Platt, Donald Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
You already mentioned Chris Cooper. I mean, it has just got an absolute great cast in a time in this country that was really a kind of a pot boiler of a time in our country's history. And dealing with slavery and different kinds of things that were going on in this country, that the blacks and the freedoms and different voting and all kinds of different things that were going on in our country in the 60s and in the South and so forth. I believe am I correct? This took place like in the 60s or
No, it's actually modern era. So it's,
okay, all right.
So I mean, while they were still obviously dealing with racism and things on there and the KKK and that, but it was supposed to be, I think, modern, like in whatever this is, 97.
Okay.
And but yeah, and of the John Grisham movies, I think this is probably my favorite. So.
Oh yeah, this kicked off like a bunch of his books getting made into movies. I believe. I don't know. Maybe there was one that came before
The
this.
Firm was before this.
The Client came out before.
Okay, maybe there was a few then. But they're all great books, and I honestly wish we would get more of his works turned into movies. But there was a couple that didn't turn out so good, like the Runaway Jury or something like that. And they're like,
which really wasn't even that bad. Runaway Jury wasn't that bad. Yeah,
didn't turn out so great when it. Yeah. But there was so many books of his that I would still love to see get turned into movies, and maybe with TV, you never know, some of his stuff could get adapted. But I mean, I just definitely think Jake Brigance, the character, is so great, and he has such a great relationship with all the characters he plays off of in the film, and it had a great message too about family and whatnot. So yeah, I had A Time to Kill at number 4. So now we're going to go to Russell's number 1.
Yeah, and I hate to be. I know a lot of people are going to be, oh, you just did this because he won an Oscar for it. But if I think about performance-wise, I'm going to say it again. It was one where I think that he really transported himself into the role, and I'm going to go with Dallas Buyers Club as my number 1. Just because of the film, the fact that he dropped all this weight for the film. On top of it, he just really soaked in this whole entire character, fighting corporations to try to get medicine for HIV/AIDS, and I just love everything about it. I just think it was a really good film. I thought Jared Leto obviously won an Academy Award he won Best Supporting.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a fantastic film. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. And again, I think this pretty much seals off the McConaissance, the Dallas Buyers Club, because I think after that, really his roles haven't been too great since post Oscar win, I would say. But just to me, like when I go back and I think of McConaughey's like one of his best performances, I think just because of the fact that he committed so much to the role, losing the weight, kind of how the same way that De Niro put on all the weight for Raging Bull, just that type of character commitment in a film. And I think that really paid off, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think McConaughey really just delivers a star-studded performance. I think it's a great film, and yeah.
Well, Russell, my number 1 is also Ron Woodruff from the Dallas Buyers Club. Everything that you said, I mean, he literally loses all this weight. He just completely looks half the size of his normal self. Yeah. He looks like he's sick because he has HIV and he can't get the help he needs. He can't get the drugs he needs. So he goes to all these other countries. And then instead of just helping himself, which he does, his doctors say he's going to live for 30 days. He ends up living for like 6 years or something like that, or how many he lives for a long time after this. And like you said, he helps all these people that are sick with AIDS and HIV. And wasn't about himself. He was about, well, if I can't get anybody to help me, I'm going to try to help myself, and then I'm going to help other people. And of course, people were pissed off. Oh, the people that make these drugs and say these drugs are the ones we're supposed to use, and all these rules, all the rules that you're supposed to follow. It's like, what's more important, saving lives or following FDA freaking regulations and all this crap? And then one of the drugs that they're giving the people that gets accepted, that's the drug that almost killed him, and they're trying to give it to all these other people because they can make money off it.
It's all a moneymaker, yeah.
He is just so great as this character of Ron Woodruff, and he definitely he was right for earning an Oscar for this role. And you're right, this is what kicked off that year of the McConaughey's, that whole year where he had great movies like Killer Joe and Mud and The Lincoln Lawyer and all these movies around that period of time. And he hasn't been doing as many great films since then, but that year we put Matthew McConaughey now on a pedestal as one of our great actors now because of that year. And when you get that statue in your hand, that puts you on a whole new level of other people. Like you said, Jared Leto won an Oscar for playing a transvestite, Rayon. And so, yeah, I had Dallas Buyers Club at number 1, Ron Woodruff as well. You got any thoughts on that, Brian?
And nothing hasn't already been said. I mean, it's as a movie, I thought it was very good. Just not the kind of thing, I don't tend to go back and rewatch, deep, depressing dramas a whole lot. But his performance in that is absolutely extraordinary and deserving of the awards he got.
Yeah. All right. So, Brian, you got any honorable mentions?
Yeah, just a few. I guess somebody else already mentioned Lincoln Lawyer. I thought he was a lot of fun in a small role in the middle of the reconnaissance. He did Magic Mike, which he was actually quite fun in.
Yeah, he was.
Forgot about that.
U-571, I really enjoy as a war film, submarine film. Frailty, which is a movie that Bill Paxton directed. I thought he was very very creepy and intimidating in that, and that's another one that kind of showed a different side that we don't see very much. Lone Star. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. He plays a sheriff in a small town. And the last one is it's not really because of him, but he does have a voice in it. But I think it's an excellent animated movie. Is Kubo and the Two Strings. So.
Russell, you got any thoughts? Any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I just have two. Obviously, Brian's number one, A Time to Kill, I have. And for a chick flick that I enjoyed, I think it would be like the beginning of the kickoff for his chick flick, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think it was just a fun film. And yeah, we saw the same pattern going on in the early 2000s. I believe this came out in 2003. It was just one of those films where I go back to it. It's an enjoyable film. It's one of those guilty pleasure chick flick popcorn films. And yeah, it just kind of started off that whole decade of pretty much what he would be kind of doing the rest of the decade. So it's a fun film. And yeah, McConaughey, and this really just kind of showcases, and basically what they were doing was they were selling this, sex icon pretty much, you know what I mean, to the mainstay. Like they were just saying, hey, you know what? This guy's an attractive guy. We want to get him out there. And then that's basically why he got lost in that like whole failure to launch and all those other films that he did in that whole entire decade was just pretty much because of that. But hey, it worked and he made a bunch of money off of it. So it must have worked out for him. So, but yeah, those are the only two I got.
He plays another lawyer in another movie. He doesn't star in it, but he plays kind of a different kind of lawyer. And that's Danny Buck in Bernie. I loved him in that as just kind of like this guy don't trust this. This guy's a criminal. He's he's just robbing all the old ladies and shooting them in the back and all this. It's just different for him of his lawyer movies. And Bernie, Jack Black, that's another whole thing. I also got Beetle from Kubo and the Two Strings, where that year he did 2 animated films. He's also Buster Moon in Sing, which I really a shisty kind of koala. Was it a koala? He was.
I believe so. I watched it once.
I'm not 100% sure.
I think he's a shisty koala. Like I said, Killer Joe Cooper and Killer Joe. Oh my God, what he does in this movie! If you want to see something completely different than anything you've ever seen Matthew McConaughey do, he is 180 degrees the opposite direction of anything you could think in Killer Joe. I mean, wow, he just absolutely nasty in Killer Joe as Killer Joe Cooper. I got Roger Sherman Baldwin, Frailty, Adam Meeks. Oh my God. If you have not seen Frailty, people, do yourself a favor. This movie is fantastic. And there's a twist. I will not give it away. That is one of the best twists I've seen in a movie in recent memory. Also, I have he plays Richard Worthy Sr. in White Boy Rick, which he's really good.
White Boy Rick was really good.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to see that one yet, so I got to check that one out.
That was one I was going to put on there, but I just think because it was so new, and there were so many other older movies that he was in, but that was a really fantastic film, very underrated, and it didn't really do good in the box office, but gave a great performance in the film, though. Yeah,
Richard Worthy Sr., the father of Rick, White Boy Rick, if you will. And this takes place like in the 80s. And he's like a gun salesman or something. He goes to like flea markets and sells guns and stuff. It takes place in a really kind of poor part of Detroit and stuff, rundown part of Detroit. So it's very interesting to see him take these kinds of roles later after he won for Dallas Buyers Club. All right, so Brian, run down your top 5 from 5 to 1.
At number 5, I had The Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. At number 4, I had Reign of Fire. At number 3, I put Amistad, 2 Days to Confused, and number 1, Time to Kill.
And Russell, 5 to 1.
At number 5, cameo Wolf of Wall Street. Number 4, We Are Marshall. Number 3, The Lincoln Lawyer. Number 2, Interstellar. And my number 1, Matthew McConaughey Film, Dallas Buyers Club.
In my number 5, I had Moondog, despite criticisms. Number 4, Tyler Brigance from A Time to Kill. Number 3, Mickey Haller from The Lincoln Lawyer. Number 2, Mud from Mud. And number 1, Ron Woodruff from Dallas Buyers Club. Brian, where can you be found?
You can find me all over the internet. I'm at Letterboxd under Cinemaphile, Facebook to send in my name, Brian Michaels, and most of the time over at Multiplex, where I'm one of the showrunners of movie Warzone, as well as competing and hosting and editing and all kinds of other stuff as well.
And Russell, where can you be found?
Yeah, my buddy Chance Ellison and I, the Cobra himself, have our own Facebook page, Notorious by Chance, where we put up polls. That's our podcast. I think we are going to be we just put out 50 Shades of Grey. I think it was a couple weeks ago. We are going to be doing our kickoff for the 2020 year. I think we're going to be doing the top 20 performances of 2019. So that should be pretty exciting. But yeah, get on the Facebook page there, and then we put up polls. And then also our YouTube channel, Notorious by Chance, which we've been kind of dormant for a couple months because he's been busy and I've been busy and life happens. But yeah, we put up new reviews and we just kind of live stream, or not live stream, but we just kind of pretty much shoot the shit for like 10, 15 minutes on new releases. Kind of wanted to talk about The Rise of Skywalker. We never got around to it. I'm sure we will. But yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere else playing movie trivia, just hanging out, talking movies, doing all that fun stuff with our big group of nerds that we have,
Yeah, you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest. You can also find I write movie reviews and I write sports articles on a website called cinesportstalk.com. That's cinesportstalk.com. Also, I write for another site called Disappointment Media. I won't spell that for you. Just disappointmentmedia.com, where I write about movie reviews. I've done some articles on my best performances of the year, some awards contenders, my best of the decade of the 2010s on both sites. So there's a lot of articles if you want to read anything that I have written. And so for Brian and myself, good night, everybody.